A coalition of doctors, physicians, and science educators is calling for Spotify to take action against misinformation spread on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. Kim, so they're not calling for the episodes to be taken down, but they're calling on Spotify to kind of produce rules around what they call misinformation. What was your reaction to this letter?
Well, first of all, in just reading the letter, this was signed by 250 people. So, it's not a large group of, 250 is still fairly large, but it's not by any means as large as Joe Rogan's audience, and especially the number of people who've watched these episodes. So they're basically saying in this, if I could just read the first paragraph of this letter, it says, on December 31st, the Joe Rogan Experience, a Spotify exclusive podcast, uploaded a highly controversial episode featuring guest Dr. Robert Malone. The episode has been criticized for promoting baseless conspiracy theories, and the Joe Rogan Experience has a concerning history of broadcasting misinformation, particularly regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. By allowing the propagation of false and societally harmful assertions, Spotify is enabling its hosted media to damage public trust in scientific research and sow doubt in the credibility of data-driven guidance offered by medical professionals. JRE is not the only transgression to occur on the Spotify platform, the JRE that particular episode, but a relevant example of the platform's failure to mitigate the damage it is causing. So they go on to say that the Rogan podcast has provoked distrust in science and medicine. He's discouraged vaccination in young people and children, incorrectly claiming the mRNA vaccines are gene therapy, promoted off-label use of ivermectin, had other people on who've spread a number of unsubstantiated conspiracy theories, saying Dr. Malone was suspended from Twitter for spreading misinformation, and yet he had him on the show. They're saying that he's promoted numerous other baseless claims, including several falsehoods like about the vaccines, and unfounded theory that societal leaders have been hypnotized by the public or have hypnotized the public. And they say that many of these statements have already been discredited. And so they say these actions are not only objectionable and offensive, but also medically and culturally dangerous. What I think is medically and culturally dangerous is not having scientific debate and not listening to other doctors and epidemiologists and then having that open discussion and debate. What I find culturally dangerous and medically dangerous is just saying, no, we can only hear one side. We have been told since birth, at least I have been when I was raised, that I should always seek a second opinion. If the doctor gives me bad news, go get a second opinion. Even doctors have told me this. If they've given me a bad diagnosis, they say you're free to go seek a second opinion. So that means that the second opinion might disagree, and that often happens. People, I think, are free to hear the opinions of very well-respected scientists and epidemiologists and doctors who suddenly during this pandemic, even though they've been revered as some of the top in their field up until this point, suddenly they're quacks. And, the people aren't buying it. So, I don't think it's up to Spotify or Google or Twitter or any of these places to be censoring information, and then people can assess. I don't need to be treated like a child. I want to hear it all, and then I'll decide. I don't understand why that's so difficult for these people to understand.
I don't think the answer is censorship by these big platforms either. But I don't think that we're getting enough debate. I think that Rogan. I'm curious for your take on this. I think that Rogan now is in such a league of his own, has so much kind of cultural power, and so much influence over people that comes with a responsibility to not just say, hey, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just letting this guy talk. That he now is in a place where he ought to be facilitating a debate as well, or at least having some more of the counter views. Now, it was great that Sanjay Gupta came on. Thought that was a really informative show. It helped me actually think through the idea of vaccinations for children, because I got to hear for 10, 15 minutes a back and forth between Sanjay Gupta and Rogan over whether or not kids should get vaccinated, and he put out his side, Gupta put out his, and I was like, okay, that makes sense. I see the point that Gupta is making here. But so at this point, to just put Malone up for 4 hours, or to just put McCullough up for 4 hours, without then having the other side presented, without having somebody even for 15 minutes to go through let them see the transcript, let them go through it, and to say, here's where I disagree with these, and here's where people can go to learn, why I disagree with this assertion that this person made, I think would be beneficial to his audience. He's a free person, he can do whatever he wants, but I think at some point there's a responsibility to not just say, hey, this guy says he invented mRNA, so everything he says should be taken as true, go.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're getting the other side bombarded at us all the time. I mean, we're hearing it over and over and over again.
But we're in silos, so we don't, people are like, people think that that's what they are, that's the case. Some people are getting nothing but CNN, other people are getting nothing but Rogan.
I don't think anybody's getting nothing but Rogan.
Well,
I mean,
nobody's getting nothing but Rogan. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, but I do think that there is definitely a crowd that's only watching CNN and MSNBC or mainstream news, and I don't think they're listening or paying attention to Rogan at all. But I do think that the people that listen to Rogan are hearing everything else being bombarded at them, whether it be from just their friends, their neighbors, social media. They're getting it wherever they go. So there's no avoiding, I think, the mainstream way of thinking of the pandemic. I don't think there's any avoiding that whatsoever. So I don't think the Rogan audience is like living in a bubble of their own. I just think that they're getting, finally, information from other sides that they're not able to get at all. I mean, I think that same criticism can be lobbed at CNN and MSNBC, who never have these other people on, right? They only say this is the one narrative you're allowed to believe. They criticize. And at this point, this group of doctors saying, well, and nurses and other medical professionals on this list, not all of them are doctors, but they're, they say, well, this is all misinformation. I mean, bull, guys, bull. At this point, everything has been called misinformation, and now it's suddenly true. I mean, now I turn on CNN, and they won't shut up about cloth masks not being effective. That was something that people were censored for months ago. Not even, I mean, weeks ago, people were censored for that. And now suddenly, and it's, look, I've had 2 videos removed from YouTube and being told that they were misinformation. The first one just discussing the possibility of the lab leak theory. That was removed in March of 2020. They said, you're not allowed to do that. Now everybody talks about it. And then in April of 2021, they removed another video saying it was misinformation when I was saying, there are some reports that the Pfizer vaccine may cause some heart issues. Well, then they said that's misinformation. Then suddenly that's widely known that there are some cases of myocarditis. And then they say, well, everything has been called at some point misinformation, and now it's not. So, people are seeing these types of letters and they're just saying, whatever, give us a break at this point. 2 years in, we know the game.
Right.
We're not buying it.
Right, and that's why just censorship isn't going to work, especially in an evolving field like science. And I think you're precisely right about MSNBC and CNN. They ought to be having some of these dissenting voices on as well and hashing those arguments out so that it's not so jarring to the MSNBC or CNN audience when these things that they have been told were misinformation the entire time turn out to actually be true. And then they're going to start wondering, well, wait, what else is not true? So,
right. Well, and talk about sowing medical mistrust, right? I mean, that is what is causing a lot of the mistrust amongst these people who were told, if I get the vaccine, I won't get the virus. If I wear this cloth mask, I won't get the virus. If they were told to do all of these things. And at the end of the day, it didn't work. And now they're getting the virus and they're saying, oh my gosh, I trusted you. And now look at where I'm at and I don't understand. And I think that is actually medically and culturally more dangerous than hearing these other sides of these, of these medical debates. Like I said, a lot of these guys have come out to be true after all. So it's hard to make an argument that, we should censor them or remove them or Spotify needs to rein in on Joe Rogan.
Right.
I don't know.
I think just more information, like point people in the right direction or allow a robust debate like we have on here is what I'd say. But anyway,
yeah, right.
We'll have more Rising right after this.